Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 18 of the Between the Lines podcast. I know, I know it's been, quite some time since we have been back, almost a month, a long hiatus, for us. Uh, Me and Michael, we have been just kind of, had a lot of stuff on our hands recently. Ever since after, the Panthers playoff game, we kind of wanted to, go through all the playoff games and, kind of do that, every week. But, some stuff came about. We didn't have, couldn't find the right timing for it. And we kind of liked off. And, I'm going to take full responsibility for that. Um, because, I love doing this. I love, talking football and, just talking about the Panthers and, whatever happens. So, I've missed it. I'm really back to be back. Michael is not here, unfortunately, but the show must go on. And so, with that being said, a lot has happened, since the last time we have came about. Um, we have our Super Bowl 60 matchup. We have some head coaching situations getting saluted. Um, a lot of moving pieces since the last time. Pro Bowl just happened. So yeah, a lot of things happening, but let's just get right into it, man. And talking about the Carolina Panthers 2025-2026 season review. First off, I couldn't be more proud of this team. You know, to go from 5-12 last year, um, you know, and just kind of see the way, team, how this team kind of played out, um, and fighting through adversity. Um, it was really cool to see, especially when you're going to get up against these like big, physical teams like the Green Bay Packers, who you snuck out a win with resiliency, with the Rams earlier in the year, you know, and just some other gritty wins. Like it was really great to see because we really haven't seen a whole lot of that um, from Carolina over the years. But just seeing that was really great to see, like against Tampa Bay at the bank earlier in the year. That one, I was in attendance for. It was a crazy packed game, and it was crazy to see that stuff because we haven't seen it in a while. So, and the energy felt different with this team. It felt different in a way that everyone was kind of bought in. You kind of saw, the intensity and like what kind of mindset these players are in after the games, during post game interviews, during the week. You can kind of see that mentality, and it really showed, on the field a lot of the times. Now, were the Panthers consistent? No, no. We talked about this on the podcast a lot. We were talking about how Dave Canales, he needs to be a little bit more consistent. Because I feel like if we were playing, the way we were, um, against around like against Saints or whatever, I feel like we could have reached double digit wins potentially, against the 49ers, all that type of stuff. So consistency needs to be a huge key focus into next year, because this is a big, step in the franchise direction. You have a playoff appearance now under this group of guys. Now you need to build off of that into next year. And, let's just talk a little bit. Panthers finished 8-9. Um, 3-win plus difference compared to last year. And the energy just felt different. It felt different. Um, all the fans that showed up at Bank of America, almost every home game. It was an electric atmosphere. I am happy to say that I've been to a lot of the games with Michael. He's a season ticket holder, so it was great to be in the atmosphere and just take it all in. Um, and it felt like this team really fed off of the atmosphere from the fans. And whether that was a sack, whether that was the pounding of the seats, or whatever the case might be, they really felt off of it. And I know they felt it because I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick flashback, to when we played the Los Angeles Rams in the regular season. Stafford off the forced fumble. I mean, when that ball hit the ground, it was like pandemonium in that stadium, and I was there in the rain, everything. It was a great win to see and watch, a great game, and those are the type of moments that really shape the direction of a franchise. And really gets fans going. So I think at that moment, like people were kind of looking at us like, okay, this Carolina Panthers team can play. So I think, when you look at moments like that, because we had a lot of great moments like that during the regular season, but when you look at, stuff like that, you're looking at this Panthers team like they can make some noise. Um, so I'm really, happy about that. Um, and there was a lot of, there's a lot of good, but a lot of bad that happened, this year. Um, I'm going to talk about one of the bad that can, that's on the top of my head. The progression of Xavier Leggett. I wasn't. I'm not very the biggest fan of him. I wasn't the biggest fan of him coming out of the draft. Um, I just didn't feel like getting a fifth, year rookie out of South Carolina. I didn't feel like he was really going to be the difference maker in our receiving room. Yeah, he's had some nice moments and whatnot during his rookie year, but you're supposed to take that big leap into the following year. Panthers traded for you to snatch you in the first round, and you quite literally showed no progression whatsoever. Um, and then you get overlapped by Jalen Coker, undrafted free agent, get overlapped by him. Um, Jimmy Horn and Tremaine were honestly playing better if I'm being honest. And then obviously you got Tedero McMillan who is probably going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So at this point, I think Xavier League is really just fighting for a roster spot for next year. Potential, and whatever the Panthers want to do in the offseason for a receiver, if they want to trade for another receiver, draft one, whatever the case might be, just to bring in some extra competition in that receiving room. um, I think that would be nice. It wouldn't hurt whatsoever because I think, after the playoff game, I think the consensus 1 and 2 is T Mac and Coker. So, um, really, he's really fighting for that three-spot receiver. So we'll see what happens then. But that's something that you really icked me during the course of the year. I mean, honestly, he became a meme um, during the season with Cam Newton and all that type of stuff. Same with Keon Coleman, all that type of stuff. They really became more of memes than actual NFL players. So, and if you're getting involved in those discussions and conversations, then everything really isn't looking so good for you at the moment. In terms of the tight ends, throughout the season, I was thoroughly impressed with Tommy Tremble. He had a career high in terms of catches this season, um, mentioned by Joe Davis on commentary. Um, and, Jatavion Sanders, I think he had a little bit of a down year compared to last year. He was dealing with some injuries, and that kind of, halted him a little bit. and he had that season-ending ankle injury at the towards the end of the year. So that hurt. Um, and then you also had the rookie Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame, a guy who is capable of receiving, as he's had multiple receiving touchdowns on the year, and he's a decent run blocker for a rookie like him. But if we were to like compare tight end rooms, I feel like Carolina would probably be towards the end of the list. Just really young. But if we can, get some more product, if we can get some more production out of Tommy Tremble, if we can take that next step in terms of like receiving, get him involved more in the pass game. 'Cause I know Dave Canales likes to use a lot of three tight end sets, in the run game and whatnot. But that's how we elevate these tight ends. They can do everything. Um, and I think Tommy Tremble really has the you know talent to really do it all. Um, I mean, he's been here for like a solid like 3 years, and ever since I saw him his rookie year or whatever, I feel like he's had that potential. So I don't know. I just feel like they're out. They're in the off season. We'll see what happens with this progression. See how they use him in the passing game and whatnot. So as far as things goes, I think at the start of next year, this is pre-draft, pre-free agency, whatever. But right now it goes Tommy Tremble, Mitchell Evans, Jatavion Sanders. That's how it goes for me. Why quarterbacks, quarterback Bryce Young. Bryce Young had a much better year compared to last year. Benched last year at the early part of the year, and then came back and was playing at number one overall pick level that you would expect towards the end of the year. And after that, you were kind of hoping that he would build off of this momentum and carry it into this year. And I think he did a really good job at handling the adversity because at a guy at his age, handling with a lot of, adversity and whatever, um, I think he did the best he could in terms of bouncing back and playing at the level that he can play at. And I think he can be so much better. He hasn't even reached his peak yet. So, if we can up that from 3,000 passing yards to like 4,000 passing yards, 3,500 passing yards, like whatever we have to do, just take those steps in the right direction. 23 passing touchdowns with 11 interceptions and two on the grounds, um, rushing. He's a very underrated rushing quarterback, in my opinion, as well. A lot of people don't really see him as a guy who can really run it. But when you see him run the ball, he's actually a lot faster than you might think. And people on the field might tell you that because, I'm looking at him at the stadium, at the stands, and he's over here outrunning like, some safeties and, some of these top tier linebackers and juking and making them miss, like he did in the playoff game. So he's a really underrated runner. I think a lot of people, take that away from him just due to the fact of his size. But, Bryce Young really put Carolina on his back a lot of this year, with some game winning drives. And I mean, we all know how he is under pressure and what he can do. The most game winning drives, at his age right now. But I mean, we just got to see. Let's do this again next year. Um, let's just continue to build off of this with Dave Canales. And a lot of the problems was, you know, Dave Canales not letting him reach his full potential by not expanding the playbook. That was a concept that me and Michael and a lot of Panther fans were having, this year. Um, why are we just slow playing everything? Let's not make it overcomplicated. and let's let him throw the rock. And you see what he did against the Atlanta Falcons: 445 passing yards, um, and multiple touchdown passes. So you let that go, and you'll see some success happen. We just gotta you know be consistent in that department. We can't just be one sided. So that leads me to the coaching side of things with Dave Canales. I think it's pretty obvious where things stand with me and Dave. I'm not really the biggest fan of him. Um, he has his flaws, yet, and he has some weaknesses. So obviously, it's just the consistency part with him. I would like to see that. I also think he should, like take a little bit more control when it comes to um, aggressiveness and whatever. I feel like he plays things a little bit too safe at times, which can really cost the team. Um, it did a little bit, when we played against the 49ers on prime time. So I feel like if Dave is a guy that just comes out really aggressive next year, I think this team really has a lot of potential to be way more successful than people think. So that's just kind of where I stand on that. Defensively, Israel Evero taking this team from almost dead last um, in terms of defensive rating to around 15th, 14th in the league now with this group of guys. you know Shout out to him. Give him his flowers. This defense played very well all year long. And people are going to look at some box scores and be like, oh, well, they let up this amount of points. Well, if you watch the game, a lot of it is really on, a lot of unfortunate circumstances. Like when we played the Buffalo Bills, Bryce Young did not play. Andy Dalton played and really was playing for the other team, and which caused, and the Panthers' defense was really on the field for the entire game. And people will look at that and be like, oh, well, they let up 43 points. You're going to let up 43 points when you're on the field more than the offense. So, um, you know, that, that's going to, kind of derail a little bit of that. But, I mean, I love the way the defense played. The DBs, oh my gosh. I mean, dare I say, best secondary in the league. I mean, that's what Sean McVay thinks. And, the Los Angeles Rams, they said the Panthers were the best DBs they played all year. And they play Seattle twice a year. And we already know how their secondary is. So, obviously this secondary and this defense gets, is looked at a lot by coaches and whatnot. So, and understandably so. I mean, you have J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson, who really had a breakout year. He's going to get paid eventually, and we already know what J.C. Horn can do. But let's talk about a little bit of the safeties. Trevon Moehrig, who was a signing from Las Vegas, very, very good signing. Led us in TFLs. He was always, there at the spot in terms of running, stopping the run. Um, Pass coverage was a little shaky, but he did a well-rounded job, I feel like. And then the rookie Lathan Ransom, he had a he had a good rookie season, I feel like. Obviously he had some issues starting at the beginning of the year, but then as the season rolled along, I feel like he was finding his groove and things, and finding his way in the rotation more. He had a game sealing pick against Tampa Bay. Um, and he was a quality starter at times, and that's all you can really ask for as a late drafted rookie. Um, and he was a solid depth piece as well when he wasn't starting. So really really great safety tandem we had there, along with Nick Scott. I mean, Nick Scott is Nick Scott. We already know. We already told y'all how we feel about him, but He did make some plays this year. He did make some plays this year, so I will give him some credit there. And then this D line. Derek Brown, already know the man in the middle. Should have been an All Pro, but we all know how the Pro Bowl is nowadays. So I don't really take it seriously anymore. Um, but then you have a lot of young talent there, like Nick Scorton, Princely. Um, those two guys who we drafted last offseason. I think Nick Scorton is going to be, our future edge rusher of the future. I really impressed with him. He just needs to get home. He just needs to get home. That's all he has to do. If you watch the film, you will see that, his get off and his pass rushing ability, he can get there. He just needs to finish. Just finish. And I know he probably knows that too. Because, some of the things that he be doing to these offensive linemen are really scary as a rookie. And it makes you, oh, if you just, watch his film, you'll see what I'm talking about. Princely's a working process. Um, he can get to the quarterback, but it's just going to take some time there. But he was more as just a depth rotation guy. This year. Um, I mean, and that's really what you could ask for. When you're in his position. Um, I know Michael. He's a big fan of him, so um, we'll see how he rolls around next off season, and then. In terms of in terms of our linebackers are probably our weakest part on defense. We struggle tackling and covering tight ends a lot. So Trevin Wallace, second year guy out of Kentucky, he played okay, but towards the end of the year, he kind of, fell down a little bit, and then he ended up having a season-ending injury where he was unable to play in our playoff game and whatnot. And then Rosenboom, who was a guy that was all over the field, and he was just kind of boom and boom like everywhere on the field, but he just struggled to make a lot of tackles. And so I think that's something that we should look at this offseason. And I mean, I like them both, but if we want to finish those tackles and finish on defense, we should. I feel like linebacker is obviously one of the top concerns, so we'll see how that goes about. But overall, Carolina Panthers, as a roster, as a team right now, it gives me a lot of, solid hope going into next season. I am confident in, what I am confident in Dan Morgan and what this organization is going to do. So I'm happy in the sense that we have a sort of, direction. We have a plan. So I'm really happy about that. And in terms of um, our roster, I'm confident. So that's a good thing. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers versus the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, I know I'm a month late, guys. I'm a month late. A lot of people probably aren't talking about it anymore, but I know a lot of Panther fans are. And this was a game that just felt crazy from the get-go. I mean, once we knew that the Panthers were going to win the NFC South through a three-way tie, every Carolina Panther fan probably bought a ticket to that game. And if they didn't, they were locked in on their TV. And I can speak from experience. I waited probably till the last about 2 days before the game started to buy my ticket. Because because I couldn't go with Michael because he was bringing, his girlfriend and she wanted to come. But so I was like, should I watch this at home, save the money, or do whatever? Um, but couldn't pass up this opportunity. I could not. I think, going to my first playoff game ever, going to the Panthers first playoff game since 2015, home playoff game. I just couldn't miss it. I wanted to be a part of this atmosphere, and I did not regret it whatsoever. Um, I told everyone I would 100% do this again. I wouldn't, it just felt different compared to watching it on TV. And it was a crazy atmosphere. I'm just gonna say that. Towels were everywhere. The stadium was packed. Um, like 70,000 people were there. I mean, it was crazy. And uh, that's just the atmosphere speaking. And then pregame, you had Cam Newton pounding the drum, probably the greatest Panther of all time, in my opinion. And then you have all these Panther legends, tailgating before the game. You know, During the game, they honored them a little bit. Steve Smith was even there. Like, I mean, the pregame atmosphere, insane. So just with that alone, probably would make you want to go to the game and whatnot. I mean, and the Panthers were going to go all out for this game, so they brought everyone. But in terms of the game, I mean, it was probably the best wild card game of wild card weekend, um, and one of the best playoff games this year. So yeah, I mean, it was crazy, and look, it was crazy looking back on the highlights and just watching the full game in general. But and I knew it was going to be a good game when you have Joe Davis and Greg Olson on the call. I already know it's going to be a good game. But in terms of it, I mean, the Panthers started down 14-0, gave up two Puka Nacua touchdowns, which I love Puka Nacua. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL. He just does it all. So, seeing, being there down 14-0, Bryce Young at that point, he already gave up an interception off of Jalen Coker. He stopped mid route, which was kind of unusual from him. But after that, Panthers knew they were kind of in desperation mode. I mean, you're a young team, you're down 14-0 at home in a playoff game. You need to do something. And the Panthers did do something. They aired the ball out to Tedero McMillan, Jalen Coker. They started with easy passes, let Bryce have time in the pocket, make him make these throws. They did. They had the run game with Chuba Hubbard more than Rico Dowdle, which could kind of tell you how they feel about him and what they're going to do with him in free agency. I completely forgot to mention Rico Dowdle. I mean, he had a great year with us. He really did. Over 1,000 yards rushing, you know. So we're going to see what happens in terms of our running back, room. We're getting Jonathan Brooks back this season. So and we still have Trevor Etienne. So this kind of really pushes Rico Dowdle out with him on a 1 year deal. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll, make a deal and whatnot and bring him back potentially. But who knows? We'll see. But going back to the game, you get multiple touchdowns with Chuba Hubbard at the goal line. You run him a little bit, get the vibes going, and then you start playing some defense. You start locking down Devontae Adams. When you're playing press man, we shut down the Los Angeles Rams. We did. But then when we started playing zone, that really hit us. And when you're playing a zone against Matthew Stafford and this Rams offense, you're gonna get torched. And when you're playing an Israel Everett zone defense, it's not the best formula to win games. Um, and this was also the Jalen Coker breakout game. Over 150 yards receiving in this game. He had a touchdown. I mean, it was crazy. And this is what solidified him as our wide receiver, too. This is what solidified it. And coming, just having this breakout game in the playoff game and on national television. Um, it was really great to see an undrafted free agent like him. So I'm really proud of him, and I was proud of his performance. Tero McMillan had a nice showing as well. Um, and I thought Dave Canales was really mixing it up well in this game, so I will give him credit there. Mike Jackson, this was the best game he's ever played in his life. Interception, multiple pass breakups. He was locking down Puka, Nakua, and then you had J.C. Horn on the other side who was doing his thing. Um, and it was really great to see, just everyone clicking in the second half. And then at one point we took the lead. We took the lead, and then we gave it right back on a Kyron Williams touchdown. And then we came back and blocked a punt. And at that point, I mean, the stadium went crazy. It was crazy. And then we were there in the red zone. And then we come back with a Jalen Coker touchdown in the left corner of the end zone to take the lead with just around 2 minutes left, 2:36. But as we know, that was too much time for Matthew Stafford and the Rams as they marched down the field with ease, and they ended up scoring with about 30-ish seconds left, and that wasn't enough time for us to do anything. So and they ended up winning. So and that ended our season. But you know, this game alone was just a really fun game to experience and be there in person. Um, I go back and watch this game a lot, um, and see what happened. Just seeing how loud the arena was when Charlotte sports are good. We are loud. We are there. I mean, I'm loud all the time anyway, even when we're not good. But when you have 70,000 people screaming with you, it just makes it even more fun, even more better. And, and Michael will say the same thing. So I'm really happy in the fact that, we have a playoff caliber team. We really do. Um, so I'm just really happy in that. A lot of people looked at us coming into that game like I think we're 10-point underdogs, 10-point underdogs coming into it, or maybe 14, 10 or 14, and we came into that game and we only lost by 3, and we had the lead with 2:36 left, and at that point, if you were to ask people, like it was crazy to witness in time, so you know all the credit in the world to the Carolina Panthers this year. And after the game, I mean, I was in disbelief. I was shocked, but at the same time, I can't be that shocked. It's Matthew Stafford, the Rams. They have all the experience in the world, and we're a young, up and coming team. I think we're going to be just fine heading into next year. So that's my overall thoughts on and a review on the Carolina Panthers this year. um, and we will have more news and content coming, everything related to Carolina Panthers football um, during the off season. So make sure you stay tuned with that. But this week, Super Bowl 60 is upon us. Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots. Predictions. I think this is a game that's really I think this game has a chance to be eerily similar to the one against Denver, Seattle versus Denver. The Seattle Seahawks defense is no joke. They're really stacked at every position. Um, and I think with them going up against Drake May and this Patriots offense, I don't think the Patriots have the weapons to really match up well with what Seattle is doing on defense. I think Seattle's more physical. I think they are more. I think they're just better at every other position. And when you match up with Drake May and this struggling Patriots team throughout the playoffs, I don't think they played that well. Because when you look at the teams they played the Texans in bad weather. Drake May didn't particularly have a great game, and the defense didn't really have that well of a game until later in the fourth quarter. Um, it was just CJ Stroud, having all these turnovers. I mean, it was crazy. And then in the championship game, they play a Bo Nix less team, with Jarrett Stidham at the helm, and then I mean that alone should already give you like, I mean he's gonna make some bonehead decision at some point in this game to cost Denver, and it was in the snow. I mean, but I'm not gonna make excuses for Denver, Brown. You kind of see where I'm going with this stuff. Um, and then when you go up against the Seahawks team, I mean I've seen them all year. I called them the best defense in the league after that Texans game on Monday Night Football. I said it, and I'm sticking to it. So I think this Sunday on Super Bowl Sunday, I think Seattle and Sam Darnold, they're playing at a high level on offense. I think the matchup between JSN and Patrick Surtain is going to be fun to watch. Um, but let's just say JSN is kind of taken out of the equation. Sertan is just, locking him up. I think Seattle's run game is still it can still be fine even without JSN. I think they have enough playmakers to win this game even without JSN. And if JSN is not getting like 10 plus targets or whatever, and he's getting like four, but he makes a crucial catch late in the game, I think that's what's gonna, solidify things for for the Seahawks. I'm sorry, I said Patrick Surtain. I'm sorry, I meant Christian Gonzalez for the Patriots. But um, that will be my predictions for this upcoming Sunday. Seattle will win the Super Bowl, and I don't think it's gonna be close. I would love a close game, but I don't think it's gonna be close. And yeah, that will be um, all for that. And I will see you guys after the Super Bowl to kind of recap everything that went on and what's next for between the lines and during the off season, whatever. As after the Super Bowl ends, off season officially begins. So I'll be back with you guys next week, and and I'm excited to for what's to come. All right, guys. See ya.